Hi, good evening, class. You're welcome to my presentation for Lee 707, Women, Leadership and Power. My name is Lydia Badu Dankwa, and the topic for my presentation today is Empowering Voices, Promoting Women's Leadership in Decision Making. Our agenda for today is we have our introduction here. We have the women's role in decision making, the importance of the inclusion of women, how to overcome structural barriers, our first call to action, bridging research gaps, our proposed research study. We would also do a review of the key artists and their findings, recommendation for future research, our conclusion and final call to action, and then our references. So for our introduction, we're saying that while women's role in leadership and policy making have improved tremendously, underrepresentation remain a critical issue. Globally, women occupy less than 30% of decision-making positions, and the gap widens even more in the national and local politics era. This imbalance limits diverse perspectives in governance and innovation, and also social equity. We are saying that women's participation in decision-making remains limited globally. As such, the purpose for our research today, or my presentation today, is to explore strategies to enhance women's decision-making power and also to bridge research gaps. So for women's role in decision-making, we're seeing that in most societies, women make vital decisions in families, but remain excluded from national or institutional leadership. In many countries, women remain underrepresented in both public and private leadership roles, and traditional gender norms often confine women to household and community level decision-making, but never to the top world. And this is especially true for some African countries where the role of women is limited. We are not usually made to be, let's say, at par with those from the Western world. And so inclusion, however, we know that inclusion actually leads to better policy outcomes and organizational performance. So we're saying that for importance of increasing the participation of women from underrepresented groups. Increasing women's participation from underrepresented groups isn't just really about fairness, it's also about effectiveness. Studies have shown that diverse decision-making teams outperform homogeneous ones, especially in ethics, creativity, and crisis management. Diverse leadership promotes innovation and social justice. Underrepresented women bring unique experiences and problem-solving perspectives. And also inclusion of women in politics and corporate settings really improves governance and trust in the system. So I have a few points when it comes to overcoming structural barriers. And some of the points when it comes to overcoming structural barriers, I have placed in 4 different categories. To achieve parity, structural changes are definitely essential, and governments and organizations must actually enforce gender quotas, transparent promotion systems, and flexible work policies. For instance, Rwanda, a country in Ghana, have actually implemented quotas in their parliamentary setup, where they are vying for about 60% of women, or 60% of the representation in parliament to be women. And this is actually helping their system. So for mine, factors to overcome structural barriers, I came up with implement, promote, reform, and invest. So for implement, you can implement quotas and gender balanced recruitment policies. For promotion, we can promote mentorship, sponsorship, and networking for women leaders. We can reform workplace culture to support work-life integration and reduce bias, and also invest in gender sensitivity and leadership development training. Our final call for our first call for action is that we're saying that promoting equality in decision making strengthens democracy and economic growth. Also, both men and women must advocate for inclusive leadership. It shouldn't just be the prerogative of women, but also men should help women in their call for or advocacy for inclusive leadership. And also, we are saying that collective accountability is great or is an essential tool for lasting change. Now we're going directly into bridging research gaps, which would in effect like help the cause of women. And we're saying that despite the growing body of literature on women leadership, significant research gaps still persist, and most studies overlook intersectional barriers such as ethnicity, class, and disability. Also, there's a need for more longitudinal and comparative studies on policy impact. And lastly, there's a limited exploration of organizational cultures that either support or inhibits women leadership. So our proposed research study here is that how do social cultural contexts and organizational structures jointly influence the transition from descriptive to substantive representation of women in decision-making across developing and developed economies, And for this research question, we are advocating for a mixed method because this would help bring out the different facets of the question, which is to combine interviews with policy analysis. And our objective for this research is to identify which policy mechanism most effectively elevates women to leadership roles. And to our review of key artists and findings, we have the recent study which highlights some of these barriers include Eagly and Hillman 2022. And Eagly and Hillman found that gender stereotypes still influence leadership evaluations, while Leslie et al. 2022 also demonstrate that inclusion improves innovation and governance outcomes. Nassim et al., however, found or points out that most policies remain reactive rather than transformative. So field studies examine developing nations' unique cultural context. More culturally specific research is actually essential to design effective inclusion strategies. Our recommendation for future research is to keep on or make sure we examine cultural influences on women's decision-making power. Also to study gender parity policies in developing economies. And lastly, to include intersectional approaches in leadership research. So in conclusion, we're saying that enhancing women's participation in decision-making is not only a matter of justice, but also a driver of progress. And we must empower women through mentorship, policy reform, and continued research. I think we should all collectively advocate for systems that enable women to lead, innovate, and transform the world for the better. So our final call to action is to empower, 2, to engage in further research, and 3, to endeavor for more reforms that is going to shape our economy or our world as we have it right now, and to ensure that women take their rightful place in decision making. These are my references, and thank you so much. You can reach me at dankwael@carolina.u just in case you have questions. Thank you so much.